So for 6.3, the main topic is the preterite tense. So far in this class, we've learned about the present tense, which just talks about general actions in the present tense, or in the present progressive, which indicates something that the subject is doing in that very moment. Now for the preterite, the tense is one way to talk about past actions in Spanish. So for the simple past in Spanish, there are two main verb tenses that are used: the preterite and the imperfect. The imperfect tense, it generally indicates an ongoing past action when, in the sense of when you talk about it in the past, there's no definite beginning or end. Whereas the preterite refers to a past action with a definite beginning and end. Now, it sounds kind of confusing, and that's pretty much because it is. The preterite and imperfect is one of the hardest concepts in Spanish to learn, harder than the subjunctive, harder than prepositions, por and para, and so forth, mainly because it really depends on the interpretation of the speaker. So an action in the past can be said in either the preterite or imperfect, depending on what the speaker meant. There aren't certain conditions, specific conditions, when the preterite or the imperfect was used. It really depends on what the speaker is trying to convey. But in general, the preterite refers to a past action with a definite beginning and an end. So, for example, one example of a use of the preterite would be when you're talking about the past, you would say, when I suddenly fell. So when you fall, you don't continually fall in the past. It's not a long sequence of fallings. You start falling and you ended falling. It both began and ended in the past. Where if you were to talk about when I was 10 years old, you're talking about the beginning. You're talking about when you were 10 years old in the past, but you don't really indicate when you started being 10 years old and when you ended being 10 years old. Or, for example, when I was young, you're talking about the past there, but there's no definite beginning or end of what you're referring to when you were young. So the preterite mainly refers to instances that you can easily notice a beginning and end in that's communicated. So for the conjugations, you can see here a list of the verb endings for AR, ER, and IR verbs. One easy thing to note is that ER and IR verbs have the exact same endings. All you do is take off the AR, ER, and IR and add the corresponding verb ending depending on the subject. Another thing to notice is the presence of accent marks in the yo form and the usted, él, and ella form. Very important because it changes what the word means. In terms of stem changing verbs, AR and ER stem changing verbs do not receive a stem change in the preterite. So, for example, a verb that we know that has a stem change is jugar, yo juego, or él juega, you to UE in the present tense. But in the preterite, it just remains a U. There is no stem change. So for AR and ER verbs that are stem changed in the present tense, they don't undergo a stem change in the preterite tense. The only difference is IR verbs. IR verbs that have a stem change in the present tense also maintain that stem change in the preterite tense. Some other unique verbs in the preterite are verbs that end in car, gar, and sar. So, for example, like buscar, to look for, llegar, or empezar, comenzar, and so forth. You can see the way that they change. You take off the ending, and then change the second to last, the letter there. So in this case, C, G, or Z, change it to this here, QU, GU, or C, and then add the corresponding ending. Finally, here's some other words that have unique endings: creer, leer, and oír. Mainly in the second person here, and tu is an accent mark, and in the third person, the I changes to OI, as well as in the third person plural. So words that are commonly used with the preterite or that indicate the preterite tense, mainly words that refer to a specific time in the past. So anoche, last night, anteayer, ayer, de repente, suddenly, la semana pasada, una vez, dos veces, ya, and so forth. all of these generally go hand in hand with the preterite tense. So for the homework, pretty straightforward. All you have to do is conjugate the verb to the correct subject in the preterite tense. So the first one, Marcela blank las sandalias debajo de la cama. The verb is encontrar. We know that the subject is Marcela, ella. So you drop the AR and add the O with an accent mark. Marcela encontró. Gustavo, blank, un regalo muy bonito. The verb is recibir. So you drop the IR. We know the subject is Gustavo, él. So recibió. Sara y Viviana, el libro al mismo tiempo. Ellas. So terminaron. La gente de viajes, la gente is the subject, ella, so preparó. And then yo, the subject, and the verb is visitar, visité.